Admitting powerlessness over our problems is extremely difficult, and putting God at the forefront of our lives in the face of those problems is even more difficult still. Welcome to Breaking the Cycle. My name is Alan Hyde, and I'm your host. I ask you to join me as we unravel stories of recovery, shift perspectives, and inspire change in those who are seeking answers and solution. Let's get into it. Hey guys, today's reading comes from a daily reader called Hope for Today. I've realized since coming into Al-Anon that to have a peaceful existence, I need to be in relationship with the God of my understanding. For me, there's a big difference between simply acknowledging the presence of God in my life and truly finding a spiritual connection. Step 11 suggests I seek this deeper connection through prayer and meditation. When I discipline myself to observe some type of prayer and meditation, my day goes more smoothly and feels richer and more meaningful. No longer half asleep to the wonders around me, I become aware that each moment fairly vibrates with the possibility of healing and wonderment. I like to take step 11 even further by engaging in daily running dialogue with my higher power, much as I would with my best friend. Sometimes this conversation is silent. Sometimes I talk out loud or write in my journal. In any case, I bring all of me, uncensored, to the relationship. Rather than being formal, my communication with my higher power is spontaneous and authentic. I'm just as likely to curse God out of anger, believing he understands my anguish just as an accepting parent would, as I am to praise him out of awe and gratitude. I can tell him that although I don't always like his will, I defer to it. It just might take me a little while. I can cry my heart out to God, knowing my wordless sobbing somehow creates a prayer of its own. I can also celebrate with him in joy and playful laughter as I rediscover parts of myself I thought were gone forever. The thought for today: when I invite God into my life through prayer, meditation, and conversation, I open myself to infinite possibilities. I didn't pray a lot in the beginning of my program. I was told to, I was encouraged to, and I watched it work for other people. It took me a little while until I got into the steps, and I'll share with those who don't know, the reading today is out of a program called Al-Anon. Al-Anon is for friends and family members of alcoholics, and in that program, we work the same 12 steps that alcoholics work. We have some minor verbiage change, but it's basically adapted word for word. And in that reading, it referred to step 11, and step 11 is exactly what it sounds like. It's our invitation to improve our conscious contact with God through prayer and meditation. And I came into program, and I had an understanding of what my higher power was, but I had no practice. The only time I would turn to God in years prior to my recovery is I would curse God. I would ask him why things were happening to me. I would wait until desperation hit or I found myself in difficult situations, and I would beg for deliverance. I would go to God and I would ask him for things, you know. I would go and tell him how bad of a case I've got it, and can you please help me with this? You know, take the wheel until the car is back straight on the road, and then I'll that's fine, God, I'll take it from here. And that was my way of doing things for a long time. And the reading was touching on, when we connect with a power greater than ourselves, essentially we could live a life beyond our wildest imagination. And I know that that's been the case for me. I've watched it happen for a lot of people, and I'll give you some examples today. When I came into program, it took me a while to actually take the recommendation to physically hit my knees and pray. And when I started to do that, I didn't think that it would really clear things up for me the way that it did. And I reverted to a simple prayer. in the beginning. It was, God, please deliver me from these selfish and self-seeking behaviors. Help me to understand my denial and help me understand my own personal brand of powerlessness. And I would recite this along with the serenity prayer. And for those who don't know, the serenity prayer is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I would add on the end of that in my prayers, I would add, help me carry the message to people who might still be in pain. And all of my plans were to come into program, to get the message, to learn the information, so that I could get out. You know, in the beginning, that was it. I wanted to get in, see what it was all about, get the information from people who've put in the work, and then go live my life the way I wanted to live it. And that was quite opposite of the plan that God had for me in my life. When I started to turn my life over to God and pray about these things, all of a sudden people would come up to me in my meetings and be like, "Hey man, we really liked what you shared and we'd love you to get more involved." And I was part of a men's meeting in Garden Grove, California. And I was a couple months into my recovery, and we had this speaker meeting where there was a lot of people there, and I had just prayed, for the last couple days to, help me carry the message. I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know what that was going to mean, was that guys were going to come up to me and ask me to be of service. And those dudes in that meeting came and they said, "Hey, we have this secretary position open and we think you'd be great for it." And in that meeting at the time, the secretary position was essentially just making sure that, we opened up the meeting on time. So all of a sudden I have the key to this meeting. You got to open up the meeting on time and close it after everybody left. So that meant a few things for me. It meant I have to be there before everybody else gets there, and I can't leave until everybody's gone and the lights are turned off. And what that did for me in my life was it connected me with what I would consider now lifelong friends. It opened me up to a community of dudes who understood me, and I finally started listening to them and connecting with them. Before program, I would come home from work and I would eat dinner, and then I would walk around the block around my apartment complex like a ghost. I wouldn't do anything fun. The weekends would come and go, and I would isolate. And when I started to get into recovery and pray about these things and turn my life over to God and actually practice prayer and meditation, all of a sudden good people started entering my life. And by taking those service positions, I started to get invited to things. Hey, we're going over to this meeting this weekend and we're going to grab lunch before, or we're going to grab dinner afterwards. I started getting invited to social functions, and I started getting invited to people's houses to get to know them and their family. And I developed lifelong friendships, people that I'm still in contact, even though I've moved out of California. And I stay in contact with these people consistently. I didn't know that praying about carrying the message, praying to God about delivering me from my selfish and self-seeking behaviors, to better understand my denial and my powerlessness, would bring wonderful people into my life who would fill my life up. And I remember my therapist always used to tell me, fill your life up, do things that are fun. What are you waiting for? Go engage with people. And I find it no coincidence that once I finally started to turn my life over and utilize one of the tools of program, which is prayer and meditation, that good people started to file into my life, and I started to have all kinds of things that were worth doing. Um, Once I started to do that, I found the benefit of being of service to people who were seeking solution, seeking answers in our program. And I carried that into my other meeting that I would go to on Saturdays. And I found that I quite liked being secretary for the meetings, opening up, having the responsibility of, having the key to open up for people. It was a way to be consistent. It was a way to spread hope, rain or shine, barring being sick. I would be there and I would open up the room. And if I was sick, I would just text somebody, they'd come and get the key. It was very powerful for me. I saw God's hand in my life. One of the behaviors that I would pray to God to help me understand is why I'm a social guy and I like people, but I keep isolating. And program helped me to understand that I had a long history of feeling unwanted, unloved, and alone. See, I grew up in an alcoholic home, um, long line of alcoholics as far back as you could see in my family tree, and that impacted me. Through the behaviors of the adults in my environment. By the time I was 8 years old, my grandparents on my mom and dad, on my mom's side, had completely disowned us. And I remember in my early adult life, um, I felt abandoned and rejected by people that I didn't even know. And that was just one example of the ways in which I would feel unwanted, unloved, and alone. And I didn't understand it until I was in program. I didn't understand it until I started reading daily readers, going to meetings consistently, hearing people share their message. I don't dislike anybody who struggles with an addiction, right? I struggle with one myself. What the reality is I I dislike the disease. I dislike what it does to people, and it affected me very, very deeply in my young adult life, and it still does. Right? If I don't go to meetings, I can get pretty isolated pretty quick, and I can get in my head about all the difficult emotions that come with growing up in an alcoholic home. But there's an alternative today. Like the reading was saying, if I have these daily conversations with God, and I liked the way that it was outlined. Just I'm going to have just a straight up conversation with God. Sometimes I'll be formal, like the prayers that I shared with you and the way that I structured it in the beginning. And oftentimes I come back to those prayers. If, let's say, I'm having a hard time sleeping or I'm just having a difficult day, I'll come back to the structure of those prayers of deliver me from my selfish and self-seeking behavior and help me understand my denial and my powerlessness, and the serenity prayer. And other times I'll just have a straight up conversation with God of like, yo, what's up, man? Today is jacked up. Things aren't falling into place. I'm not necessarily a fan of the way this is turning out. I wish things could be better, but I know I'm going to be okay. And I don't have to come so clean to God. I don't have to come pressed and pampered. I can just come, bright eyed and bushy tailed and tell the truth. I'm not feeling it today, God. I'm not feeling okay. I don't like this situation. This is a little bit fucked up. And I do cuss when I when I pray. I cuss probably too much in my life in general. I try to keep it to a minimum on these podcasts, but I do. I speak from the heart when I talk to God these days, and it took me a long time to get there. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in that kind of stuff, or you're just not sure how, you don't have to have any type of structure with it. You can just talk to God. And by opening up that channel, it's not mystical, it's not magical, it's not woo woo, it's just effective. Stop relying just on yourself. That's something I learned, and I've talked about in other episodes is, I used to do everything my way, and my way didn't work. My way was hard, man. I would get things done because that's what people do. They live a life and they get things done. And wherever you look, people are doing things. And that was certainly me. I was doing things, but I was making my life harder for myself because I had nowhere to turn. I wasn't turning my life over to God. I wasn't looking for God's answer or his solution in my life. But once I found it, things got a lot easier. And I don't just mean like, oh, I started to make more money and I started to have all these job opportunities, and everything was just peaches and cream, but there were opportunities that I couldn't have planned myself, that I wasn't thinking of. My best thinking got me in trouble, right? My best thinking moved me away from God. Seeking God's solution, seeking steps closer to him moved me closer to probably what was designed for my life in the first place. And I know that because today I wake up fulfilled. I wake up and I know that when I go to work, I enjoy what I do. I get an opportunity every day to give back in ways that I want to give back. And that is only possible because of the things that I've decided to do in my recovery and the tools that I've used, like prayer and meditation. So hitting our knees is important, right? And sometimes that means, you know, just having that straight up conversation through the day with God. And for some people, it's vital that they actually physically get on their knees and pray. And that was true for me. I wasn't going to do it unless I started the physical habit of getting in the routine of it. And maybe you're like me in that, and you need that encouragement. It's okay, right? You're not going to get struck down. I used to joke with my friends all the time, like the reason I didn't go to church for years and years and years is because I thought I would get struck down by a bolt of lightning when I walked inside. And that didn't happen. You know, it didn't happen when I went into my recovery meetings and started seeking God. It didn't happen when I prayed to God. And it didn't happen when I went to places of worship to seek God. God accepts you for who you are, whatever version of a higher power or God that you choose, right? It's a loving, unconditional power. Once you start to engage in the praying, we're also encouraged to meditate. Meditation looks a lot like what was outlined in the thought for today. It's not this, sit with your legs crossed and try to, focus on one emotion for as long as you can, or sit in silence for 3 hours and until you're transcended into an alternate universe. It's like, that's all fine and whimsical and fun to talk about. But the reality of meditation is, are there things that are beneficial for you to be thinking about for today, to contemplate, maybe to write down? That's an effective way to meditate. Have you asked yourself any questions today about who you are and the hope that you have for your life and your future, and the way you want things to continue to go for you in your life? Have you meditated on concepts that move you closer towards peace and serenity in your life? That's meditation. That's why I like these daily readers. Is at the bottom, they often give you a thought or a meditation or a prayer for the day. And if you just take a few moments to come back to it a few times throughout the day, all of a sudden your brain's working in a different way, right? You're thinking about things on a deeper level, and that's meditation. So, no matter how we would want to define it clinically or scientifically, one way that you can practice meditation in your life today is to call your attention consistently to concepts that are positive, beneficial, and peaceful for you. That's one way I've found that really works, without me having to carve out specific times of my day to sit in silence and turn all the lights off and maybe light a candle. Those are nice. I've done those things. I'm not recommending those things. But what I'm telling you is that there's many ways to go about meditation. And I want to give you one of those little bite-sized ways to take with you today: is find a thought that's positive, powerful, peaceful for you today, and return to it a few times throughout the day. Ask yourself questions about it. Think about the concept. All right. And you just might find some peace and serenity in that. And I'd like to encourage you to do that today. Other than that, I'd like to thank you once again for bearing with me. And it was wonderful to chat with you guys. And I hope you have a blessed day. Take care. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of Breaking the Cycle. If you're looking for more information regarding the topics that I discuss in this podcast, jump over to alanhyde.com. The website will be in the description. If you're looking to get involved, make a donation, or to get your hands on some cool Breaking the Cycle merchandise, that will also be available at the website, and we encourage your support. Without your support, this podcast would not be possible. So I just want to thank you, and as always, bless your heart.